I know a lot of artists, they struggle with drawing the same character from different perspectives. As you start to kind of turn that character around, it's hard to keep the same look from perspective to perspective. So in today's video, I'm going to show you how you can draw a cute little cartoon bear head from the front view, the 3/4 view, the profile view, and then finally the rear view, all by using basic shapes. Just by changing the position of the shapes between those different views makes it super easy to get the right perspective every time. And honestly, it's something anyone can do with a little bit of practice. I'm excited too because in today's episode, the first time on camera, I'm using the new ProDraw glove, my company ProDraw. We just launched these last month on Amazon. You can find out more about it in the description below and see it in action in the video. So let's go ahead and jump into it. All right, so to begin with, what we're gonna do is we're gonna start out sketching some basic shapes that are gonna kind of touch each other and join to make up the shape of our final shape. So we're gonna start out here with a kind of squished oblong oval, and then underneath that we'll draw another one that's kind of coming out a little bit further on each side there. They're touching along those edges, so it's gonna be the top portion of our head and then the bottom portion down here. From here then, we can go ahead and add in the ears. Just a couple ovals here on the left and the right side. We'll draw a center line for symmetry, right smack dab down the middle. And then from here, we're gonna go ahead and add in a chin. So we'll draw another oval here that's kind of set a little bit higher into the overall shape up here, and it comes down just a little bit there at the bottom. We've got the one line for symmetry here going down the center to help us really keep the proportions the same from perspective to perspective. What we're going to do is we're going to break this up again. So this splits this overall shape in half here. We're going to split that in half again by adding another vertical line here. We'll do the same thing here, splitting that one in half with a vertical line there. Now down here, we're going to split this one in half using a horizontal line. And this is going to be our guideline to where we place the eyes. So the bottom of the eyes are going to sit on this line, and it'll help us keep those proportion from one view to the next. These eyes are going to be a little bit lower here, sitting down, just because I want this to have kind of a cutesy feel to it. And that's one of the cartooning tips or tricks is if you want a younger, cutesy looking character, the overall head position here at the top, the forehead is going to be a little bit larger. Facial features like the eyes and the nose, those are going to be set down a little bit lower. So this you'll see quite often in infants or babies, and also for cute animals like this, that's what we're going to use. So this is basically our overall shape for our design for our cartoon bear head. So from here, we're going to make 4 different views of this. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to shrink this down just a little bit and move it over. And if you're doing this digitally, you can follow along with this process, just duplicating these layers, making copies and moving them over here. If you're following along traditionally with a pencil and paper, this is where you would just grab 4 sheets of paper, go to your nearest window, slap those on top of each other, and just trace this, putting one under the other one and trace on top. So you've got 4 of these. So what this is going to do then, it's going to give us our front-facing view. We'll have our 3/4 view here. We'll have our, down here we'll have our profile view, and then for here we'll have our rear view. So now that we've got all these locked in, we're ready to jump in and start connecting the shapes and start doing the front view. Okay, so for the front view, first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to make a new layer to draw on top of. I'm going to zoom in here so we can see a little bit better. And what I'm going to do to begin with is I'm just going to do this line here at the top, this curve line. So what I want to do here, I want to start it on the edge and stop it on the edge, using that as a guide. I'm going to twist this just a little bit better so I can see, because of the camera angle that I've got going on. It's going to kind of block my hand here. So you can see I stopped on each edge there. So that's going to be the overall shape here for the top. Now what we can do is we can, starting at this edge, we're going to kind of pull down kind of follow this around and then back out and back in. So we're not going to trace this perfectly like this for the shape of the head. Once again, these shapes are just kind of to give us the overall look and feel of where everything is positioned at. We don't want to trace them perfectly. Those are just more for a guide. So once again, kind of starting here, pulling down and out and back in, or in and then back out, gives us the shape that we're going for there. And we can do the same thing over here on this side. Stopping there. All right. Now that we're down here to the center, we can go ahead and pull a tapered line here for that chin and pulling that back up and in, kind of fine-tuning some of these lines. Now for the ears, once again, just like this, I'm not going to come in here and perfectly trace a round circle. I want to add just a little bit more line language to this and make some kind of design choices here by pulling this line out and back and around. It'll give it just a little bit more of a design flair to it. Makes it a little bit more interesting to look at. So once again, these shapes that we started out with, these are once again just a kind of guide to where everything goes. We don't have to trace those. We'll draw a kind of tapered line here coming around. Back in for the inside portion of the ear. Darkening that up on the inside. Same thing here. Darkening that up on the inside. All right. So moving down to the face now. Once again, like I said, this line here is for the eyes. So we'll go ahead and draw an oval here. And you'll see this top line here of that bottom oval, that's our guide for where the eye stops at. This is where it stops at on the bottom edge. I'm drawing the oval here. So we've got our eyes in there. Now for the bridge of the nose, I want this to start here, kind of coming down and then back up very subtly across that line. And you'll see that I'm kind of sketching it to begin with and then going back over and just adding pressure as I get more confident with where I want that line at. For the eyes now, once again here, I'm not going to perfectly trace a circle around there. I'm going to actually pull down where this starts to curve back in here. I'm going to kind of taper that line up and around into the top like that. And then do a lighter line here at the bottom. Same thing there. Tapered line at the top there and then back in towards the bottom. Then drawing some ovals in here for the pupils. Draw a tapered line here coming up for the snout, the bridge of that. And just kind of darkening up where all those connect. Can use the eraser to kind of pull in some lines too if I need to fine tune. I can also use that eraser to add in some highlights there. And this is just the same eraser, same brush as what the brush is that I'm using to draw. All right, moving down now, drawing an oval here and that center line just a little bit lower than that snout line across. Filling that in and then coming down towards that center line with a V, making a triangle to form the rest of that nose, and then darkening that in. Going back to that eraser, just getting a nice highlight there across the nose. And draw a couple of tapered lines here at the top for the eyebrows, and then we're ready to finish this off with the mouth. So basically halfway down on this line here, you can kind of pull line towards that nose. We're going to pull it back down, so we're making a V on each side. And we'll add just a kind of nice little curve in here to connect those. Tapered lines there for some smile lines on the side. And there is our basic shape for our front-facing angle, our front-facing perspective. So from here then, we're ready to use those kind of same techniques and move over to the 3/4 view. Okay, so for the 3/4 view here, we're going to change just a few things on our sketch layer here. So I'm going to move to that layer. And once again here, we're going to use these same shapes, but we're going to change just a few of the things based on the perspective. So with a 3/4 view, we're going to have the bear kind of facing in this direction. So this is not going to be our center line anymore. This is actually going to be our center line. And to help you kind of visualize this a little bit more, I'm going to curve this line to give it a little bit more of a three-dimensional feel to it, so you can kind of see the shape of the bear and the head. So that's going to be the center line, which means then too, this circle is going to move over as well. So we can move that circle over. And because of the perspective, anything that sits on the left of the center line, you can see this takes up a lot less volume canvas-wise than what this takes up. So that's one of the key things to keep in mind with perspective is if you're doing a 3/4 view and you start to twist and turn that perspective, is just exactly how much volumetric space that each side is going to take up. Anything that's further away from the viewer is going to take up less space. So now that we've got that done, we can also kind of visualize these ears are going to change size a little bit. So this ear is going to be a little bit smaller because of the perspective. This ear is going to be just a little bit bigger. So we can use, once again, the same position, we can just change the size. Now that we've got that done, I'm going to move back then to the layer that I was drawing on, and we're going to start the exact same way here that we did before, just with this top line here, starting it at the edge, ending it at the edge right there. We'll kind of pull back here to see how our curves look. Once again, it comes down in and then back out, and we can stop it right there on the edge of that chin. And we'll do the same thing over here, pulling out, back in, and then stopping at the edge of that chin down here. Now that we've got that done, I'm going to zoom in just a little bit here tighter so we can go ahead and get that chin in. So we'll pull in a tapered line. And once again, you'll see this side here from here to here on the chin takes up less space than from there to there. I'm going to take out those sketch lines that I did. So we're still staying true to our perspective. Now for our ear, we can go ahead and get that knocked in here. Same thing here, not tracing that line, just following the curves, adding in that extra curve there at the top, just like we did before. Filling in there. And now on this side, this ear this time is going to be on the front plane of the head because of the way that the perspective works. So we're going to erase here because that ear is going to come over top, whereas this one's in that background there. It's not in the foreground. So this ear is going to come in on top. Same thing here, just get the inside of that ear done. I'm going to kind of pull this around. That's one thing I really urge you to do. If you are using digital, feel free to twist and turn your canvas. You're going to notice that your hand and the way that your arm will move is going to be a lot more natural feeling based on the way you have your canvas turned. So instead of keeping everything straight, I try not to zoom in and move things too much in these videos, but when it is necessary, I will do it. And I really urge you to use that technique as much as you want going across your entire drawing. Don't even use it sparingly. Use it all the time. All right, so now that we have this done, you'll see the center line here that we made. This previous center line is now going to be that eye on the right-hand side. Our eye on the left now, we're going to go ahead back to our sketch layer. I'm going to make a new center line for this eye. So we're going to break that half and half again, just like we did before. But you'll see once again, this side's smaller. Because of the perspective, this side is larger. So now we'll go ahead and get our ovals in for our eyes. You'll see here, I'm kind of pulled out a little bit further so I can see my other front face. I don't want to have all these on the screen at once just because I want to kind of show you that even without looking at these side by side, just using these guidelines that we have, you can get really close to the same perspective, not even basing this off of the other one. If you are working on this at home, I definitely would, recommend switching back and forth between the views just to make sure that everything does stay the same from view to view. But from here, like I said, I'm going to try to not do that too much because I want to show you exactly how this works without kind of looking back and forth. All right, from here, I'm going to start to get that curve in for that snout. So we'll start to get that sketch area in, and then we'll pull up this curve for the snout coming in that we had on those edges before. For our nose, we'll get that in here. Once again, the oval for our nose is going to take up more canvas space here to the right. This line coming down for the triangle is going to be shorter on the left side, longer on the right. Get that filled in there. And now for the eyes. Once again, if you see how we did these, we came up and down like this. A little bit there, lighter lines there at the bottom. Try that one more time. These curves, I really like to make sure that these look really, really tight and nice. So I will try to do those a few times usually just to make sure that those have the exact feel that I'm going for. And then pulling out, you can kind of see here what we've got. I've got that line a little bit thicker at the top, but I think you get the idea for this video. I'm not going to go back and noodle it to death. I'm going to go back then to the eraser. Once again, just using that same brush that I'm using to draw with to erase in these highlights. And then for the mouth, once again, pulling up towards the nose from this line, back down. Then I kind of have a curve in there already for my sketch, so I can kind of follow that around and connect those, and then those little smile lines there. All right, and pulling back out, you can see then we've got our front-facing view, we've got our 3/4 view. They match up, they look like the same character, and I know that's what a lot of people struggle with, is trying to get it to look like the same character in both perspectives, which I think we were successful here. So moving on then, we've got the front, we've got the 3/4. Let's move on to the profile. All right, next up, we've got our profile view. So I'm going to go ahead and switch back over to that sketch layer and zoom in here. So we've got some stuff to change here. So with the profile, the ear here on the side is going to be just a little bit bigger. So we'll get that knocked in. And then, of course, here from the side view, the chin is going to line up a little bit more here with the forehead. So if we pull this down, this oval here, we want positioned butted up against there. So we can change that and get that in there. And then everything from there is going to be pretty much the same. I'm going to switch back over to the layer that I'm using to draw on. And of course, like I said, the chin here coming up, we can start to kind of get that blocked in a little bit better. This line here was where that snout came in. So we can kind of start to make that curve. And then of course our nose is going to be there on the end. Our line here with our V is going to be a little bit shorter on the front, a little bit longer in the back. And then if you remember our mouth here, it's pretty much going to take the same shape from here in the center to the right. So if we start here and go back, that's basically what we're going to be looking at. So I'm going to pull down here, the front of the snout. We'll bring that line back, up, and then back down. Just like that, and then that little curved line there for the smile. Go ahead and bring that back in there for the chin. And now for the eye, once again, this is going to be positioned here. Center of that line, also between that curve here and the line here. This one though is going to be a little bit different. We're going to pull a little bit more straight here at the top and bring that back because of the perspective. Get our pupil in there, our eyebrow across there, and now for the rest of the head here. So this is where I go in a little bit more sketchy just to get the overall shape in here, because obviously it's not going to follow along with this line here. It's going to come down a little bit more. And then following this line back. Once I see that I have everything lined up pretty well, I can go ahead and start to sketch in that ear there, and then I can go and just darken everything up. So we'll zoom back in here and get this line coming around there towards the front of the face, the ear here with that little, once again, that back twist, and then the turn. Zoom in and twist here so I've got a little bit more natural flow to my wrist. This line here. Once again, this ear sits in front of that line because of the perspective. All right, and then pulling back, you can see there we've got the profile view. So 3 out of the 4 done. Final one is honestly the easiest one. Let's move on to the rear facing view. All right, so finally the rear facing view here, super easy. We're not going to change anything with the perspective or any of these sketches, and we're going to begin just like we did with that front-facing view with this line across the top. Difference here is as these curve in and back around, we can stop there if we want, but we are not going to add that chin in there. We're just going to connect this line across that chin. For the ears here, same thing, just like we did on the front. We're going to pull those around with that curve. We're not going to add this inside part because that's on the front. And then I'm going to use the eraser, and I'm going to go ahead and just erase this overlap here. And then what I like to do on the back here, I just like to add in just a couple of kind of crease marks to where that goes and meets there across the back of the head. Just so it's not completely open and flat across there. You can kind of fine tune our lines there and pull them back out. There we go. There's the rear of the head. So all 4 perspectives now, the front, 3/4, the profile, and the rear. All right, guys, so that's it for today's video. As always, I appreciate you watching, and hopefully you got some valuable info out of today's video. If you did, make sure you give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit that bell icon so you can get notified when I post new videos. I can be found online at bjdell.com as well as on social media at bjdell. Like I said earlier, the Pro Draw Glove out now on Amazon with Prime, free 2-day shipping. Links down in the description below, plus the Pro Draw Grip also available on Amazon for the Apple Pencil. Any of those purchases do help support the channel since I do own Pro Draw. So thanks for your support. I appreciate it. And until next time, keep creating.